We are joined by Roger from Whistling Wizard. How are you going, Roger?
Yeah, good. How are you guys?
Not bad. So your game is
Rose and Locket.
Rose and Locket.
Yeah.
Rose and Lockets.
Rose and Locket. So this is your first year debuting at PAX, is it?
Yeah, it is. So the game's kind of been all over the place with the publishers. So we were just in Japan and Germany and all that type of thing. But this is us coming out with Code NZ. So they've been gracious enough to take us out. Yeah.
So what's your development process on Rose and Locket been?
Yeah, it's been pretty much all go all the time. We've just been kind of working. We've been on the game for about 5 years. So the first half of that we were still working conventional jobs and then trying to find time, and then we kind of landed our publisher deal.
Yeah.
And then from there we basically went full time. So things have ramped up since then.
So you've been doing it for 5 years. So how did COVID impact your development process?
Not so much. I mean, we're actually still working from home. We're going to move into office space soon, but my daughter's 2, so that was really nice to be at home in that environment. So yeah, but the company will be growing soon, so we'll need that office space there.
So we should say that the game is like a Western supernatural kind of action platformer. I don't know if that's how you describe it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I just wanted to ask about, so as soon as I saw the art style, that's what, and I think a lot of people are drawn to. So can you just speak about that? How you, did you come up with the idea and then the art style, or did you come up with the art style and then how do we fit it into our...
Yeah, so I've been an artist for many years and did a lot of freelance work prior to getting into game development. So basically I was just drawing a lot from the stuff that I'd liked and learned over those kind of decades of doing art. And and it kind of progressed as it went. So initially the game was kind of like a silent title. We got into voice acting and that kind of pushed the narrative and the story, and then that obviously just kind of built around. So it's kind of an all-inclusive game. I mean, as you were playing it, you would have seen it's kind of headphones on and then, that type of thing. So, but yeah, it did progress. I had a kind of core idea, which was about Rose and her daughter and the underworld. But it really was kind of influenced from a game from my childhood, which was LucasArts' 1997 Outlaws. So that got me into spaghetti westerns, which led to basically certain other things. And then, here we are many, many years later. So, yeah.
That was my next question, is as the spaghetti, because that's right up my alley, the spaghetti westerns and the kind of... the letterbox on the eyes, the extreme close-up, and of course the music and stuff like that. So, yeah. Also, the comic booky style is awesome too.
Excellent. Yeah.
I also like how each level or the levels in between levels, I don't know what you call them, it's stylized in a certain way. It's almost like comic book panels, and that was really cool. How did you come up with the idea? I know you said that's it influenced from Outlaws, but the story, I mean.
Yeah, so the story was a huge undertaking. I mean, it was me banging my head against the wall and basically putting a lot of work into getting everything basically cohesive. The story itself, it really was... I mean, right at the start, we had Rose going and, you save your daughter at the end, that kind of classic trope, you're going to the objective. And then I was like, no, I really want to build on the character development here, and I was really looking at Saturday morning cartoons, Samurai Jack, and these types of things as well. So I just wanted to lean heavily more into that kind of narrative design. We moved in that direction, and I just worked on it constantly, right, and just trying to get all the pieces. I had huge files together, and it was kind of like the madman with the pins on the walls with the strings, right? So once that kind of came all together, we locked it in, and then it was so we have the 7 realms, they've each got a sin in them, and it's kind of a progressive story, so there's subplots and stuff going on as well, so it's kind of, so now it's there, and we can just build around that,
So you're working from home developing this game.
Yes.
Do you think it would be easier to work from home or in an office? Because I know a lot of developers prefer the online workflow because, it's the Zoom interviews, and you also the commute for you was essentially important. But do you think the transition to a workspace, like a physical workspace, will allow you to work easier? Or how do you feel about this overall conversation about working from home versus the office and the differences between them?
I mean, it's really catered to per team, right? So, I mean, each team's going to flow in a different way, and each studio is very customized in their own culture and nature. For Ryan and myself, it's been great working online, but we are realizing now that we're kind of past that kind of planning phase, so it's going to be more beneficial to be in the same space.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm pretty much cruising over on the motorbike in the morning to go to his place to do something and then shift home, right? So it's but we have some pretty amazing opportunities back home with kind of like the university there that kind of wants us out, so we've got some pretty excellent opportunities for, office space and so forth.
And so how was this game funded, if you don't mind me asking? Like, what was your process to securing this project financially?
Yeah, so we had a bit of a unique situation where we had roughly about 27, 28 publishers contact us in the first couple of years of Rose and Locket being online. So we were just posting art, video clips, small snippets on Twitter, then Instagram, and we had a huge publisher interest. So that kind of grew over time, and then obviously we were narrowing down who we were going to go with, and then we ended up with the publishers we're with now. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting area to speak about, because the games publishing industry, if you will, is notoriously predatory. Like, there's all these kinds of publishing companies will be like, oh yeah, bro, we'll give you as much money as you want, but then we're going to take a 50% cut of your game. How did you navigate those waters, finding what criteria were you looking for in like a producing company or partner?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think people have a misconception when they go into publishing. I do a bunch of coaching now with like teams up and coming and dealing with their first publishers, and I think anybody out there listening is when you go into a publisher agreement, it's advancements. It's not funding. They're not there to basically provide you with a lump sum of money. Yeah. Advancements is essentially, most publishers work in this regard where they will forward the money to develop the game, then there'll be a recoup period, and then after that you move into your kind of like revenue share.
Yeah.
So but learning that, because we dealt with so many contracts, right, like those pre-contracts, we started to get a pretty good and solid understanding of how things work. The predatory nature is absolutely, but I would say that this is overall, you've got great publishers, and then you've got ones that are predatory. So it's like any industry, right? So
yeah, of course.
I would say to anybody that's out there that's dealing with publishers, reach out to studios and talk to people that do have publishers. They will probably be more than welcome to give you a bit of advice, and of course, get legal advice. So make sure you have your solicitors and everything involved.
Yeah. And a question I've been enjoying asking developers while we've been at PAX is, PAX is like blowing up for indie developers now. There's like way more than ever before. Like, do you think that's because of the democratization of the software itself, or is it like the learning is much more available than it's ever been?
Yeah, I would say absolutely that. I think the accessibility point for getting into games is just exploding, and I think drag and drop softwares, right, where you're not having to get in the back end and doing heavy coding and this type of thing.
Yeah.
Accessibility, I think the indie scene is blowing up, so more accessible games are just out there for people to try and engage in. Yeah. I think that the market is heavily saturated, but probably in a positive way. We'll see how that goes long term. But right now there is a bit of a boom, and I think, it's incredible to see PAX embracing it and really pushing these kind of stalls. So
we were talking earlier before we started recording about how the AAA game space has got so bloated and boring and monotonous, and the more interesting games, both in art style and gameplay, are all indie games. Mm-hmm. And like, was that something were aware of? Was like, we don't want to make a generic multiplayer game. It's like, we want to.
Look, I'm coming up to 40. I was playing games in the 90s. I think a lot of games still are running on that 90s model, and I think it's phenomenal. But I mean, what we wanted to do is we wanted to push our own design to the limit, and we put a lot of work into that, and that's where that kind of comic and unique framing comes from. In regards to the AAA space, I think I talk a lot about Harley Davidson. It's a company where your core kind of selling base is getting older. They're not riding as much anymore, but Harley Davidson's backed into a corner where they have their traditions, and they're in there. AAA, they have their investors. Those investors are going to play it safe because there's huge amounts of money behind this. So how do you actually break out of that corner, right? You have designed and developed yourself into a corner. Yeah. It's very hard for them to shift and move, and you kind of saw this where a lot of the AAA shooters and stuff were influenced heavily by Fortnite because Fortnite was the thing. So
money.
Yeah, and as soon as they started to pivot that way, the community was not happy. So whatever is the hot thing that can be adapted into AAA will always be influenced. Titanfall with wall running, all these types of things. You see these influences everywhere. So Yeah, I think for the indie space, it is still now, even with the amount of money behind it, which is just growing per year, there's still this understanding of creative freedom. And I think that's really just the core of what indie development is.
Yeah, I think that's the best part. Is it's getting more support, but it doesn't look like it's turning into another AAA, and the creativity is going to be lost because of the support.
Yeah.
At least that's what I hope.
And I'd like to add another note as well. So I think there's more people playing games. So when you have non-gamers coming in, I think there's this accessibility thing that saturates as well, which can sometimes water down an experience, right? So I think there might be a point where developers are trying to cater to too many people also, and I think you might lose where you are within that design.
Yeah.
So that can be a concern moving forward. Bigger markets, right?
Yeah. Callum, do you want to ask your question about the... Or I'll ask it. Is there a feature in your game that... Oh, wait, which other question? I'll do this one. Is there a feature in your game that you really wanted to include, but for whatever reason it just didn't fit, and you're still trying to think maybe we can put it back in, maybe we can do an expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd probably be hard pressed to find a developer that hasn't had this, right?
Yeah.
Scope creep is everything. So what essentially happened is what you do is you have these features, you'll prototype them, you may love it, but it's an individual feature and it doesn't fit within the ecosystem of your game. So what you do is they may even form into entirely new game ideas. And that happened to us a couple of times, right? Where it's like, it's always in the back of your mind is keeping that scope in check, you know, and that's incredibly important, especially as a small indie team. There's no kind of overseeing producers here, right? You are a producer, business owner, everything, so you have to be very on top of that stuff. Yeah.
Kill your darlings, that's the saying is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's next? So how long into development? You still got a while till release, or?
Yeah, so we're looking around mid next year, but that's dependent on the publishers. We'll be wrapping up before then, and then we're starting to kind of look at our next games, and not starting, but we are pretty prepped for probably the next 2-3 titles. I wanted to be very prepared moving into the future, because Rose and Locket was such an undertaking to figure out. We want to move forward with that kind of engine and kind of develop out from there, because Ryan's done a lot of amazing work within that, so yeah.
Well, this being your first game, video game, at least that you're bringing to PAX and that. If you could go back in time and speak to yourself when you were just starting the planning phase of this game, what's one lesson you wish you could share with Roger?
It's a great question. I have thought about this before. I mean, one thing I did stick to, and it's one thing that I constantly did that right. I reminded myself of what I said initially when I was starting out. Was make sure you don't lose what the core mission statement was. I think there's maybe an insecurity in design that happens where you're online, people have like crafting and cooking, and you feel like you must add that to your game, right?
Yeah.
So I think I stuck to that advice, and it would probably be the same advice I'd go back and give now. Like make sure it's good to grow, but also make sure you remember why you got into it and what that core passion was for it.
Yeah.
So
And in a similar vein, if you could give any advice to any budding game developers out there, whether they're just young kids who want to learn and get there, or students themselves who might be going to university, like what's your number one tip for amateurs out there?
The number one tip is get out there. Honestly, post your stuff online. I know it's terrifying, and honestly, when you first start doing it, you're going to get no traction, and that's going to make you feel terrible. The truth is honestly, you have to be putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Here's some actual real practical advice. Make sure you're posting at about 3 a.m. in the morning. Schedule your posts, because that's going to hit stateside at the right time.
Oh,
yeah, okay. And then basically, constantly put yourself out there. As it grows, you'll gain a following. We got all of our publisher contacts just from being on Twitter and Instagram. So if you're not willing to put yourself out there, and I know at that age there's a lot of insecurity and everything that comes with this stuff, but you'd be amazed, especially in the indie scene, how supportive people are. So
Well, I've been thinking about imposter syndrome a lot lately.
Right.
And did you feel any of that coming to PAX, being surrounded by so many talented people? And of course, your game's amazing. But do you look around and you think, how did I get here?
No, I think we never quit on the aspects that we needed to do, and we never shied away from the things that were hard. So when we know and can say that we know our project entirely, that's how we can stand here and probably be proud of what we've done. That imposter syndrome, yeah, we had it. Everybody does, but you have to have that. I find it the insanity of people that think that they're going to step into something day one and understand it. Everybody starts out not knowing anything. So yet again, this insecurity around that for any young listeners out there is really, we're just people doing this. We just posted our work online, and now we have a publisher. We're no different to anybody else starting out and doing this. Everyone can do it. So that's an incredibly important message to realize. When you're surrounded by all these people, they're in the same space. Yeah. They're just people. Everyone's just people. So yeah, if you put yourself out there, they will come.
Right. So what's next for Rose and Locket?
Rose and Locket, yeah. So more PR, more shows. We will have a Steam Next Fest demo coming up probably February, somewhere around there. So everyone can play that. And yeah, we're going to be moving on as the company into kind of our next titles.
Yep. Thank you so much for your time, Roger. Where can we find you online? What are your socials?
Cool. So you guys can just search Whistling Wizard, so that's either Instagram or Twitter, or you can check out whistlingwizard.com just for our website. And just before we go, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Code NZ for sending us out here. It's been incredible to represent New Zealand, so yeah, excellent. So big shout out to those guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Envy trapped my daughter's spirit.
Collect those sins for me, or the little one will never see the light of day again.
He wants me to do the dirty work for him. So that's what I'm doing. Done with his targets.